So that's good there. I should start going soon. All right, we're live. We are
Yo,
live. Everybody, before we start, before we say anything, you gotta let me know how the audio is. This is a new thing for the patch. I'm proud of myself that I got two audio sources to work. I didn't think I could do it, but I did it. Hopefully, so hopefully your eardrums aren't exploding right now. Um, but yeah, everybody, welcome to another installment of Late Night with the Pad. It's a very special episode today because this is the first time we're having someone on live at the same time. You already know who it is. It's your boy Fibre. Fibre, tell him what's up. What's going on?
I'm doing good. Oh man, it's been a crazy couple of months with everything going on. I'm
Yeah, it's
just
it's nuts.
doing online school and, just focusing on that for the time being. Just got off from like doing this like crazy coding thing.
Yeah,
But I'm finally done. And now I'm here.
awesome. I was actually before we started the stream. He kind of showed me what he was working on because I just have coding is like hieroglyphics to me. I just have no idea what it means, and he just showed me all this sick shit, which was really really cool to see because I don't know
Yeah.
it. I do not get it. Hold on, I'm just gonna post. Let me post the stream on Twitter. We
Yeah, for
are
sure.
now live.
Are we live actually? Because I tried to pull up your channel and it's not showing up.
Yeah, go to my videos tab. YouTube, they hide
Oh,
everything. It's so annoying. I was actually
or if I
someone tweeted yesterday that they couldn't set the bell for notifications because the channel supposedly set as like kids content, which it's not because I made sure that it wasn't. So
Oh,
I
I
don't know.
see.
There's just
Live
like a bunch of
streams.
errors, but
Yeah, that's so weird.
beautiful.
That,
All right. Also, I see Power PCME in the chat. We're actually playing Power PCME right now in the background. I don't know if you guys could even hear it. It might be really low.
oh,
Uh,
what's up? How's it going, man?
I know.
It's been a
I
second.
fucking missed my Aesthetic Nights curse so much. Uh,
Hey, guy. I'm seeing. Diego said coding in what language fiber? I'm doing C++ right now. I was like coding like a cipher project, like multiple ciphers in one.
yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the music's definitely gonna be low. Hold on, let me make the music a little louder.
Gotcha. Yeah. Mayor saying he can't hear the music. How's it going, Mayor?
Oh wow. Oh, Mayor, congrats on 1,000 followers on Twitter. I remember weird random shit throughout my day on the Twitter timeline, and I saw that, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So,
Just
also,
throughout your day or just in general?
I guess in general, I guess like I'll just remember just once, just random thing from Twitter every day, and for some reason that's the one thing I remembered. But also, Wizard of Loneliness rocking his Pad Chennington thong. How'd you get the exclusive Pad Chennington merch? It didn't even come out yet, but soon, folks, soon. Soon, I got Wiz. I got to get you on here, man. I'm
You
gonna get.
working on merch?
Um,
Oh yeah, you have your thing. You have Aesthetico or
I do.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah, I do. I gotta. I want to do another artist kind of thing on there because that's always fun to do and Teespring's so easy to use. It's just sometimes like which is the shitty part about it is the quality could be bad. Like very
Yeah.
randomly, I just get like someone will say like
Ooh.
it came out so bad, but I'm trying to figure out other ways to just distribute merch and do all that stuff.
Yeah, we used one of those distributors like for my record label. Thank God we didn't like actually get any sales on some of the products. Oh my God. Like I don't even remember the name of the distributor, but like we got these like we did like a few t-shirts and some sweatshirts and some embroidered hats. And in terms of quality, bear in mind all of them sucked. All of them just
Yeah,
completely
well, see,
sucked.
the Teespring is great because it's I don't have to ever see the merch. It's just I make the designs and I manage the online shop, and then they take a huge cut of the profit, but they just do all the shipping, they do the production, and so
Yeah. Yo, I will take you up on that, by the way, PowerPCME, about like whatever plug you have for merch because like I like really need it. Like we need it for the label for like Montem at least. But yeah, it was like weird because it's like we ordered samples for all those three things and like in terms of like quality, The worst quality was the embroidered hats, which sucked because that was like what I was actually looking forward to, like getting like a rook on like the embroidered hat, and they were just like so bad. Like there was clearly something wrong. Like the Montem logo was like really off shifted. It's like, what did they do to my boy? They like mangled you. Oh God. And then like the t-shirt was fine, but then the color ripped off of both of them within 5 hours, and it just smelled like vinegar. It was weird. And then the sweatshirt, I still wear the sweatshirt, but the only thing that's wrong with it is that the hoodie part, because it's like a hoodie sweatshirt, is like for like a baby's head. It's so small. It's like improperly small. Like the dimensions are
Oh
off
my
on it.
god. I
So I
actually
just
years ago, real quick before I go Duck. Thank you for the donation, by the way. Thank you very much. Appreciate it a lot. Uh, Years ago, I did. Me and my buddy, we did like a private label. Like we would research all this stuff just to make extra money. Like years ago, and there was a
man, you
like
were already doing the hustle
I
like
was trying, man.
young.
I was trying. So we got into like Amazon private labeling, which is like you buy a product in bulk and you private label it. So private
Oh
label,
my
whatever. You like
God.
brand it in a way, whatever.
I considered doing that as well. Oh
Dude,
my
well,
God.
so it worked out and it didn't at the same time. But the crazy part was we were ordering products from Alibaba and we would have to test the quality. And like
Mhm.
some of the stuff was just so beyond bad, like beyond.
Yeah,
Oh my
Alibaba
god,
can do you
it
like
was out
that.
of control. But talking about good merch though, and then we're gonna move, we'll actually start talking about audio production. I don't want to keep you guys
Yeah.
waiting, but PowerPC and me, dude, those hats, I gotta cop one of them because they look real nice.
Yeah, they
I
did
saw that on
actually.
Twitter. I gotta cop one of those.
Embroidered hats is like the first thing that I'm looking for right now because it's like
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
the
such like
move.
a
They look so
it's
nice,
it's
so
such
nice.
like a I guess like a fashion statement. Like getting a nice embroidered dad cap is
Yeah,
like
it's fresh.
it's
It's
just
so clean.
it's fresh
It's a
pretty
good
much.
look.
That's the best way you can say it.
Yeah, and also real quick before we go on, because I'm seeing Wizard of Loneliness, Sound Market, Power Piece and Me. We got that virtual festival coming up.
Yeah.
Dude, I didn't even know you were in it.
No,
Five.
yeah, no. Okay, so like how do you pronounce his name? Is it a hero or a hero?
I always say a hero.
Okay, a hero like hit me up about it. And like God, I felt so bad because like I was in the middle of like so much stuff going on like with just school in general. I mean, it's usually like that, like and I tend to manage it just fine, but it was just like for like a full week I was just like, you know what? Okay, I just have to work on this and then once it's done
Uh huh.
and I can move on. But he hit me up about doing this and gave like this super descriptive like exactly like on point like this is what we're gonna do, this is
Yeah.
what our goal is, like the whole 9 yards or whatever you say for that.
Hmm.
And then I just left him on scene because like I like read I skipped through it a little bit but I was like barely checking
I
my
do that.
phone
I do
because
that. Sometimes when people, especially you, you're so good at sending really long text messages, and
oh
sometimes
God, yeah.
I'll need to like set time to myself to answer it properly. Like I don't want to give you a
Yeah,
half-assed answer because you gave me just a
I
beautiful text, and then I'll
sometimes
forget to answer. I'll forget to answer.
sometimes I'll just like I will like have issues like I can match people's energy like really well, but then sometimes like when I'm like busy or really tired, I'm just like at like 0%. So I was just like I just got that long message and I was like I wasn't like taken aback by it necessarily, but I wanted to spend like actual time like going through it. And then I just straight up like forgot to respond and like I think like a little less than like a week later, he was just like, "So do you like actually want to do this or not?" I was like, "Wait, no, I actually do. I just need to go through your message." And like then I told him it was cool and I joined the Discord server and everything. So I'm pretty excited to play that.
Yeah, no, me too. And I looked at that lineup and I keep like re-looking at it because I'm noticing new people every time. Like I 3D Blast
Yeah.
is in it, Tupperwave's in it, which I don't know if Tupperwave's ever played a live. To what I know, I've never seen him play a live show, so that'll be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an
We're
awesome
thinking
lineup.
about because with everything that's going on, we're actually thinking about doing like a really big live thing with like Montem as well. And like
Awesome.
I just know that if we're gonna do something like that, like it has to be literally the best thing that anybody's ever seen. So We're
Oh yeah,
thinking
you
about
got to
it.
do it up. Also, one more time, really quick, Go Go Duck. Thank you again for the donation. I really, really appreciate it. Um, it's my man. Thanks, buddy. But yeah, there's a lot of festival, like live virtual festivals coming up. I know I'm gonna be doing a couple. I just don't know if they're announced yet, so I don't want to say anything just in case they're like gonna do an announcement. But there's some good stuff coming, and it sucks that we can't do the live shows right now, which it really sucks. That's what
Yeah,
I
it
was looking
really.
forward to that so much. Dude, next week, I mean, there was like you had Essential, and then I had Aesthetic Nights. We had the Atlanta show in a month, so just things like that. It's just it sucks.
Yeah,
It really sucks.
it's just kind of crazy to think about how like I don't want to dwell on it too long because like what's said is said, what's done is done.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
just like it's just insane like how many things like a lot of people were looking forward to that like now we can't do for some sort of undefined period of time because of
Yeah.
all of this. So
I know.
yeah,
It
it'll
is
go
what it
back to
is.
normal eventually at some point. We just got to stay hopeful and just take advantage of the time that we have.
Yeah,
That's the best
exactly.
thing.
But yeah, but I mean, since there is no live shows, you might as well, take the time to make some music. As hard as it is to stay motivated and stuff, it is
Yeah.
obviously a good time to make some music. So that's what we're here for today. You're gonna get a really interesting discussion because um, when I started getting into making music, Alex was one of the first people I talked to, and I really learned a lot from him. And still, I have so much fun making music. Just I know I have so much farther to go, and I have so many things to learn. And so you're gonna get the perspective from me, and you're also gonna get the perspective from Alex, who's pretty much been doing this for at least almost 10 years now, right? I think you've been doing it for that long now.
I think like 2011 was like when I started, but I
Mm-hmm.
think I like seriously like started to work towards Fibre and like created like the actual like concept behind it probably around like 2012, 2013.
Mm. Do you want to tell them the story how you got the name? Because I don't know if
Oh
a lot of
yeah.
people know that.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. And I'll mention something afterwards that actually I don't think like almost anybody knows. So I don't think I've ever told you either. But basically like so the way that Fiverr like came to be is that when I was maybe about 12 or 13 years old, I decided like I was so motivated by like Daft Punk and like French house musicians of like the late like 90s and like the early 2000s. And I, with like me finding like the Phantom's Revenge and people like that, it started to make me realize that like you don't have to like necessarily be this insane sort of like higher up figure like Daft Punk in order to start making this music. Like just for like my 11, 12-year-old brain, like I thought that this shit was like borderline impossible. Like you just need to have like an elevated level of like intelligence to be able to do stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, I was super far off that that wasn't the case at all. But the thing was is that I started realizing that other people were making this sort of music, and I was just like, okay, well, if I want to start making this, I actually have to come with my alias. Luckily, Fiverr was the first thing that I came up with. Well, sort of. Like I guess it stemmed from the first idea that I had, which like when I was a kid, I was like super unoriginal. I didn't know where to start. I had no experience with this, so I literally just went to a band name generator and it was like a band name generator made for like rock and like punk bands, like metal bands and stuff like that. So like the names were like mixing and matching like different words that would like, that would fit bands like that, not necessarily for like an electronic sort of like project. I got something like Flight of the Avian. I think that's what it was. And I remember like just being like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool. I actually really like that, and I decided to go with it. But then I like never wrote it down. I never like put it down like anywhere for me to remember it. Went to bed that night, woke up, started to make the SoundCloud account, and I was like, what was it? Oh yeah, it was Fiber of the Avian. So like for some reason my brain twisted flight into fiber. And then it took like a week for me to realize that this name doesn't make any sense and like that like it kind of sucks. So I decided to change it to Fiber because I liked like the actual like I liked that first part. And I kind of wanted the project like from the very beginning to be associated to things that were like like using low budget like stuff that you can like easily like obtain to make quality music. You don't
Mm-hmm.
need like the craziest, most expensive thing, just a laptop and some speakers. And yeah, pretty much I swapped like the ER to the RE like really quickly in like 2 days flat. And then I just stuck with that for years. I actually wanted to change it at one point. Like I thought it was a stupid name and like my friends talked me out of it. That was like when I like dropped like Echoplex in like 810. I was thinking of changing it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that's the story. And a lot of people also don't know. Fibre actually started off as a duo between my best friend and I. Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah. So it like we worked on one EP that never actually came out. It got like it was played out like for like I used to do IB in school, if anybody knows like what that is. Like it's International Baccalaureate, and you have to do like a personal project. And our personal projects were like a Fibre EP actually, and it like was the music for like the actual convention when they like showed all those personal projects and stuff like that. And yeah, like I tried to kind of like teach my friend like music production, but I was also like really shitty at the time. So like I couldn't teach him very well, and he ended up like quitting, and it just became like a solo thing.
Mm.
But if you go to the Wayback Machine and you look up soundcloud.com/Fibre Music, there's actually a snapshot of my old account from I think 2011 or 2012, and the description says something like "We're two dudes who make music."
Wow,
Yeah.
that
So
is very interesting. That's mind blowing to me. You were making this stuff in 2011, and plus, like I know, like I got a couple years on you, so even like for me back in 2011, I wasn't doing anything remotely like productive at all. So just knowing that you were doing stuff like that back then is pretty crazy. Um,
yeah.
but
Oh, yo, Corspect, Alan, how's it going, man? I just wanted to
oh
say hi to him. Yeah,
no, what's up, Alan?
the
Everybody show
OG.
some love for Core Respect. Alan's like the nicest dude in the world.
Alan is literally one of the best people in this
There's
scene.
so much shit that would have never came out if it wasn't for Alan. If you really think about it, that man's done a lot. That man's done a lot. But so what we're gonna do is I posted on Twitter. I also posted on YouTube on the community section. If you guys have any questions that you'd want to ask them, we're going to bring them up during the stream. And what we're going to do is we'll both answer them. And like I said, you're going to get a perspective from me and a perspective from Fibre. So it'll just be a nice variation for people who are really experienced producers, or just if you are thinking of getting into making music and you want to learn the basics, or you are making music but you just don't know how to spice it up maybe that much more. This is going to be like the perfect little opportunity for you to get some insight, because like I said, you're going to get a nice range of detail between me and Alex. So I'm just going to jump right in. I'm going to go right to that communities page. And so I'm going to start with more broad questions and before we get into specific stuff. So the first one I'm going to pull is from Drunk on Media, writes, what are your most common sources of inspiration for a song's aesthetic or sound? So do you want to go first for that, or you want me to go first?
Hmm. I think you should go first for that because I need to actually think about that.
Sure, sure. So I could say right away, many of you guys know I'm a really big just martial arts guy, boxing. I love all that stuff. And for contrast especially, I really wanted to give an upbeat, like just 80s old boxing club, like whatever the music would be on as people were training. That's what I kind of tried to replicate, something punchy and fierce and not necessarily super high pitched, but just like old 80s Brooklyn vibes. So that's what I try to do. It was what I tried to do for contrast. And then for Dewdropper, I tried to drop it down a little bit and make it a little more low, bring the lows out in the tracks and make them a little more bass heavy. But now, I think something, and me and 3D Blast talked about this when I had him on for Chillin' in the Pad. After I saw Death's Dynamic Shroud, like for real, like I saw them at Electronicon, but then I also got a chance to really watch James do his thing at T-Chill, and then I also got to see, I actually played with James like about a month ago or a month and a half ago in New York. I think Death's Dynamic Shroud's sound is so fucking cool. It's just so unique. It's so like I want to just achieve something like that. So Now I'm trying to get something that's like just powerful sounding with my music, and I think that's what I'm going to work on for the next couple tracks that I put out. But I think what I like to do when it comes pretty much for inspiration, it's pretty simple. It's artists that I like or things that I like, and then I try to replicate that sound. So that's my story.
Yeah. That's a good answer. I think that's a well-rounded answer.
Thank you. I
Like
appreciate it.
yeah. Oh, by the way, really quick,
Mhm.
Corspect asks, "Hey Pad, can I mention the vinyl sale in chat?"
Yes, everybody. I tell everybody all the time, plug your shit. I don't care. If
Sweet.
you're like, if you make something, you better be a billion times percent proud of it. Just post it all the time. If you got shit, go ahead, put it in the chat. So Alan, do your
Sweet.
thing.
I will continue I will be spamming my SoundCloud every stream from
Go
now
ahead.
on. It gives
Do
me
it.
a pass.
I'm telling you, do it.
It's just gonna drive people away. Just like code like a bot, like that'll just like send it like every half second. But okay, so if I understand the question correctly, it's talking about what are the general aesthetics that you kind of implement in your own music, and what are your key inspirations, right?
Yep.
Okay. So in terms of visual style, I feel like every sort of artist has their own branding. And with that branding comes various aspects of, you know, that basically the identity that forms that artist, you know? And there's like the visual aspect, there's the personality aspect, and then there's like the actual music itself, like, and every single like aspect of that like identity, it comes from like a form of like artistic or personal expression. So in terms of, I guess, like my visual aesthetic, the visuals like surrounding my music are based off of a lot of like space odyssey, like astronomical sort of like images, things that I used to be very inspired and attracted to, like when I was a little kid. Like when I was a kid, like I think everybody wanted to be an astronaut, but I was just so astounded with like the concept of the great nothing out there, and that there's so many things that we haven't discovered, and that like didn't necessarily scare me, that like really just kind of like fascinated me,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still something that to this day, like if I can go away from like an area that has like a ton of light pollution, like I will just go and just stare at like the night sky like during the summer, because I just think it's astounding.
Mm-hmm.
And I pull like a lot of that sort of imagery like from the very beginning, like yeah, there is like 1980s sort of like like polygons and shapes and art that's also like in like my like kind of like identity as an artist, the visual aspect of it. But then the space aspect of it, like it kind of like is meant to tell a story about my own childhood and how it was when I was growing up. So 810 was very much like the cover of that was very much like that expression of like it was like an album that kind of like was this transition from like being like a straight up child to like turning 18, and whatever comes afterwards. And the album artwork was made by like my good friend like David Pena, who goes by Explorer. But that sort of like visual aspect, like I feel really strongly to, because it kind of represents like what I would see with my own eyes, like
Mm-hmm.
as a child, what I would imagine like a far off, just kind of like fantasy world on like a different sort of planet or something like that. And then with Rendezvous continues that, but like like with the cover that you made and whatnot, that Pat actually helped work on. That's like that's just the kind of like abstract like aurora borealis. And like in a way, like I really like that, because I kind of associated that with just like the great beyond being sort of like lost in a sense. And like this idea that, Rendezvous is very much about me transitioning from now like, like a teenager to an adult and the struggles that come with it. And that sort of like association to like the space imagery is like, I think, something that I will continue to stick to, because it allows me to tell like a story about myself. But then in terms of like, like with music and, just like my personality online, I feel like without having all of those like three aspects, you don't really have like a super strong brand. It's important to take care of all of those. You can have great music, but if your like artwork is like made in like MS Paint,
Hmm.
then that's like then that's like it's kind of like a whole like in sort of like your brand or in terms of like identity and whatever.
I agree.
And okay, so and then in terms of inspirations, I stem inspiration from pretty much everywhere. It could come from like the music that I've listened to, like for example, like a lot of French house music. I'm really inspired by that, and I actually started off as a French house producer. But then, I feel like while like I'm very largely inspired by those artists, I'm also really inspired nowadays by like my own friends. Like people that like Discoholic or Ev.exi, people that are like in my community making great music, and I feel like we sort of inspire one another to make, better and better stuff. And I feel like my friends are pretty much my biggest inspiration at this point. It's like really what keeps me going and my general support system, just in life in general. So yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, I
I
feel yeah,
talked a
the
lot.
the whole thing. No, it's all good. The whole thing with the friends concept is so true too, and that's why this whole time right now. And I was saying this on the other night for the late night with Pad stream. You always hearing right now like, okay, we're all staying home. It's just the perfect opportunity to just crank out work and do that thing you wanted to do and stuff. But like for me too, a big motivation was like hanging out with friends, going to shows, and that's where I would pull all this drive and energy from. So yeah, the whole friends thing is
I
huge.
always feel super, super excited to work on things and to be creative. Like after I've had like a like I get to meet up with like some of my music friends like even after like aesthetic nights for example.
Hmm.
I was just like riding on that kind of like high,
Yeah,
like
that's what happens.
reminiscing like the memories of that entire like that literally that entire weekend, like
Hmm.
that whole week was just Magfest, like this insane show that I played where there was like 300 people, to aesthetic nights which ended up being like a smashing success. And it just like I don't know. It's like part of it is like bliss. Part of it is like me being thankful that like I know people like you and like my friends in general, like in this scene. And part of it is just, like riding that high and then using that in order to kind of like boost that creativity,
Hmm. I totally
So,
agree. Yeah, I this
yeah.
this COVID stuff needs to go away.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Honestly,
I
fuck
know.
this. Like I can't even see my fiance,
Yeah,
It
yeah.
sucks.
I have not seen my girlfriend in almost a month. We're just trying to be
Yeah.
careful, and we were just about to move out too, and like all this stuff happened, and so
Yeah.
it's a crazy time. It's
It
crazy.
sucks. So we were literally like when it started to get really bad, we were just about to go on vacation
Ugh,
to South Carolina. We had to cancel the whole thing.
damn. Ugh.
Yeah. But I think I actually saw a question that Daydream Deluxe
Yeah, go for it.
made.
Go ahead.
He said for each album you create, do you hope that others can interpret a story of their own from listening to your music? You do you want to both of us to answer that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, mine's pretty quick. I would say the obvious answer is yeah. I'd want anyone to go on a journey, 100% with their music. And I know with contrast, like I kind of I was talking a lot about it before it came out and just like why I was making it, the inspirations behind it. But then with Dewdropper, it was a little more. I didn't want to reveal anything until it came out and have people pull their own inspirations and everything. And I still to this day haven't really talked a lot about just my inspirations for Dewdropper, like behind every song. I literally made a whole video talking about contrast, so I never really did that for Dewdropper. But yeah, I would obviously want someone to
Yeah.
just take my music or what they hear of it and make their own story of it. I think that's a more fun way to do it anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah, you should make a new video on that on
I
Dewdropper.
have to. I'm going to. I'm definitely
Yeah,
going to.
absolutely. But yeah, in terms of like, my sort of music, my answer is really similar to Pad's in the sense that like yes, I do want people to kind of like figure out like their own story. And I love the fact that like people can kind of make that interpretation and associate it to things that like are important in their life. But I also definitely to this day struggle with, I guess, making music that clearly gets my own message across. And I feel like my first like somewhat successful I guess sort of way of me doing that was when I produced like First to Say with like Spring Silver and Matthew Clanton, because that song actually had lyrics and kind of like told like a little bit more of just like a story based on an instrumental, you
Mm-hmm.
know, not necessarily just associated to a specific feeling or sort of mood that like the track creates, but also like telling a story from like spoken lyrics. And it's definitely something that I still struggle with nowadays. You know, it's just something that like I'm trying to figure out, because while that interpretive part is really important for people, it allows people to kind of like relate to your music a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I feel and I wish like I could make more music that has like heavier like symbolism, like more like overtones of like that sort of symbolism, and like, you know, any sort of like personal meaning that you know that song means to me. Like I want to try to convey that better in the future,
Mm-hmm.
which is also why I'm also kind of stuck on making music right now, because it's like, you know, I want to get to that next level, and that's one of the things that I'm thinking about. Like, how do I clearly like portray this like story in my mind into like a song?
Yeah, and
And
it
then
also
it's
it goes back to what you were saying too before about the whole branding thing. If you really come prepared for your release and you want to, when you drop that release, like it's not just in my opinion, it's not just about having the music. Like if you have just well developed art for it, you have a whole presentation set up, you're ready to market this thing, you have a story behind, just everything you can use to layer that piece of music. It just, I don't know, the importance of that, of what you made, it resonates more. Like if I see someone who just puts all this time into setting up this incredible, and this translates so well too into the physical scene, like labels like Geometric Lullaby, for example. Like everything
yeah,
Geo does is there's so much craft and detail done beforehand for that release, that they're not just giving you, you know, just the music. It's a beautiful package, and it's a beautiful this, beautiful that. So yeah, there's that whole thing where you're just saying like branding just comes, it's the same thing with just music and the whole story idea. If you can properly have a story to it, and I don't know, there's so much you can do, so
yeah.
much.
It says that's why I fell in love with Incubus. Somebody said that in the chat. Are you? I think they're referring to the Tokyo Wanderer album, and that's like a very good example of what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
Like, have you listened to that album before?
Yeah, I actually did.
Yeah,
I know Alan sent me while that was coming out if I wanted to give a listen to it, and I thought it was awesome.
yeah.
um
Yeah, it's like you can kind of tell like what I'm talking about with the difference between like instrumental songs, you know, songs that are kind of like necessarily like intended for like a feel good sort of like party, and then something like Incubus, which is like has like, you know, lyrics and kind of like more deeper like symbolism and whatnot. I remember talking about it with Tokyo Wanderer, and he was actually talking about like how a lot of it was uh actually like referencing things like regarding like the future funk scene, and how like a lot of people tend to make like lazier music, and it's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek reference to that, which I thought was like fascinating,
mm,
like that he was able to portray it in that way, because it never came across to me until he mentioned it. I was like, oh shit, that makes so sense. With like, I think it was one of the last songs that kind of references that a little bit.
mm. Awesome. Yeah, that release on Core Respect is great. And before we keep going, just one more time, Go Duck. Thank you for the donations, dude. I really, I'm seeing them. I
Even
can't tell you
cash.
how much I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, especially during all these fucking crazy times. Thank you, Go Duck. Everybody, throw the ones up. I'm gonna even throw them up for Mister
Oh my.
Go Duck. I gotta throw them up. Um, but yeah, let me go. Let's go to the next one. Next question.
Dang.
Hold on. Let me see.
We're on question one. Oh my God.
Yeah, there's a lot actually, which is going to be really fun. So, all right. So the next one is how to get I'll say Art the Boy, I think is how it says. Says how to get lo-fi textures, sample selection, process workflow, and how to master would be nice. So there's a bunch of questions in there, and
Okay.
we'll
We
we'll
gotta
get
break this
we'll
down.
break it down. So the first one is how to get lo-fi textures. Um, you could do two things. So I know in the past I've literally just gone online on YouTube and typed in like vinyl crackling or just cassette stop sound effects, and then I just get the MP3 of that, and then place them into the song how I'd want to. And EQ everything out to make sure it fits in properly, because it could get really muddy if you don't do that right. But you could also just, if you have a good mic, just take that mic and just try to record just kind of field recordings, and you could just do a lot with those as well. It's also, it's good practice too. You get to kind of just work with those sounds you recorded yourself instead of just pulling them off online.
Yeah.
And but yeah, that's really it. It's kind of simple, especially when people say lo-fi texture, immediately you just think of just like fuzzy VHS, the vinyl sound, and realistically, you could just grab those online and just craft them underneath or on top of everything, and boom. I don't know, unless Fibre, you have some crazy awesome production method to tell me.
Yeah, okay, so I have a really good example of this. So I think that there's a really distinct difference between, and I'm not saying that you do this, I'm just saying just in general.
Hmm.
There's a really distinct difference between stuff that sounds lo-fi because it was unintentionally mixed in such a way that kind of makes it muddy and sort of like more like dull sounding in a sense, and like a really attuned producer's ear, like intentionally trying to make something sound sort of lo-fi. Great example of this. Tyler the Creator's past albums, like Bastard, for example. If people listen to that, like you will notice pretty quickly that like the bass is super muddy on that. Like the vocals are mixed just weird, and there's like it's a great album, but it's like there's like a lot of things that are kind of like lacking in terms of like you could describe it to be lo-fi, but you could describe it lo-fi in the same sort of sense that you could call future funk overcompressed, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference, I guess, between like smashing everything in future funk and then overcompressing like certain elements to give them power and so on and so forth. So it's like you listen to something like that, like Bastard, and then you listen to something like Igor, that's like Tyler's like new work, and then you look at kind of like how it's like it's lo-fi, but it's also kind of clean at the same time. It's got those dirty textures, but those textures feel more intentional, you know?
Hmm.
And uh and that not only I think, comes to like, like the tape hiss, vinyl crackle sort of like field recording thing that you were talking about, but then you kind of have to deconstruct like what makes something lo-fi.
Mm.
For example, a lot of lo-fi recordings, they don't really have like a lot of high end because like whatever was being like recorded on like during old times just couldn't handle that sort of bandwidth. So things like low pass filters, like slightly rolling off like the highs and then layering it with like kind of like some high pass like tape hiss, it kind of fills in the space for that and kind of sounds like kind of like grittier. There's also things that you can do to like make things sound distorted without like really like just overblowing them. Like let's say you have a sample and you want to run it through some distortion, you can distort it, roll off the high end, and then cut the lows from it if it doesn't have any bass, because that distortion will like introduce like a bunch of like bass frequencies that you don't want, and that'll make the whole thing muddy. So it's like not only that, but you could also do things like the big thing is wow and flutter in lo-fi stuff. If you listen to a lot of lo-fi hip hop, you'll hear like kind of like the samples that are using, they kind of wobble a little bit. It's almost like there's like some sort of like pitch, like slight pitch modulation going on.
Hmm.
And like there's like a lot of plugins that can allow you to automate that wow and flutter, so that pitch variation like changes like depending on what like you want to do. If you want it to be just kind of like a subtle effect, you can do that. If you want more of a pronounced effect, you can like shoot it all the way up, cut the sample out, and then bring it back down. And you can get like really interesting like results just messing with that. Also, another thing is just tape saturation and tape emulation plugins. For the WoW and Flutter, there's a lot of like good Hertz plugins that are good for that. And then for like tape, you could do like Diva Satin or like Isotope, like Ozone's I think it's Isotope Ozone's like
Isotope vinyl, I think, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Isotope Vinyl, Isotope Trash. The tape emulation in Ozone is really good. He's Satin is also a really great one. And then there's like the RC20 that has wow and flutter, tape saturation, everything in it. And that's a really great way of achieving that sort of like lo-fi sound without like destroying your mix in the process. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, food for thought.
Awesome. See, I told you people this is the stream you want to be on because you're gonna get my answers and then you're gonna get like just amazingness like that. Like that was beautifully said. I gotta say, beautifully said. Um,
Oh wow.
and also,
I'm
Go Go Duck,
oh my
you're the fucking
damn.
that is amazing. You literally helping me through this. I don't even know what to say. And Go Go Duck's done this too in the past. Like this is amazing. Thank you.
Wow, what a great guy.
Yeah. Thank you so incredibly much. Um, and Go, if you have any, like, please feel free to take the stage here. If you have any questions for me, me and Fibre, just please let us
Go
know.
Duck gets first
You got
power to
you got
drop
first dibs
anything.
here. Um, okay, so next question from Sponsored B. Shout out to Sponsored B. Always comes up in my streams. I always see that name. Sponsored B says, "What would your best approach be to chopping samples?" So I guess I'll go first. Since you just went. So what I would do is before getting to the samples, it's just I guess finding the samples, and that's another question someone posted too. So we'll kind of knock two birds with one stone out. So we'll answer how do we go about getting samples, and then how do we chop those samples up. So I'll go first, like I said. So for me, for contrast, what I did was, and I saw this in a Jay Dilla documentary once, that he would go like vinyl digging in like his crates of vinyl, and he would just pick out records that he's never even seen before or heard before, but he would pick records according to just things that he thought looked cool, like album art that looked cool, and he would take
I also
that
do that, yeah.
and he would purposely find a sample through that. So for contrast, and this was the time where I still had like there was a point where my record collection I would just go to garage sales, buy like get amazing deals on records, flip a bunch of them, but I just had so much bulk that I never listened to, and I knew I was going to get
Yeah.
rid of it all, not all of it, but I was going to get rid of a huge chunk. But before I did that, that was when I started making contrast. So I said, let me, maybe do that Jay Dilla thing because I was having a hard time finding samples. So I did that and I pulled a bunch of stuff and then I found those samples. And that's how I did that. So once I found the samples I liked on the record, I got the tracks and I chopped those up. So what I would do is I would, and I'm also very curious to see what you say, Alex, because I'm sure you have a really awesome way. But all I would do is I would take the song, I drop it in. I use FL Studio. So I drop the song in and then I would play the whole song through. And then I would go back and play the whole thing again. And as I would play it back, if I found little bites that I like, I would chop those up and then drop those down like one stem or one. I wouldn't even know what to call it.
Literally, that's exactly what I do.
All right, there we go. So I would do that. I'd go through the whole song. Then what I would do is I would delete all the scraps that I'm not going to use anymore. I like to think of everything as food. It makes things a lot easier for me. I like to think of it like a salad. So like I just chop all the shit I don't want, all the fat, whatever, and then I get rid of that. And then I get what I like, what I'm going to use. So then what I'll do with that is I'll snap everything like in FL Studio. I'm probably saying shit that is so obvious to people, but it's just, listen, this is how I'm
Hey
gonna.
man, a lot of people don't know
Yeah,
this.
I'm gonna
Like,
tell you what I
really?
know. I'm gonna tell you what I know. So there's like a magnet option where you could just snap to events. So you could take any clip that you have and just snap it. So I snap everything together and then I play that through. And then you start getting really excited because you're like, oh, this sounds pretty good. This sounds pretty good. Then what I would do is from there, I make the song. So I put the drums, I do whatever I'm going to do, the bass, and I split things up. I have my intro, the verse, the bridge, whatever it is, whatever I'm going to do. Then I do two things. And I'll give you guys a really, this actually is the example of, this is how one complete song that I had on Contrast came to be. And I don't think I ever said this before, but
God damn, man. Go Duck be like
I
he's
didn't even
keeps
look.
donating, man.
I didn't look. Oh my God. You're,
Another $40,
yeah,
dude.
that's amazing. I don't even know what to say. I don't want to sound like some cheesy, YouTuber, but that really is fucking amazing Thank you. I don't even know what to say. Thank you so much. So what I would do is once I got to the point where the song was like, it was pretty solid. In FL Studio, there's another tool. It's like a slider tool. And what you can do is you can just grab each individual chop and like you could click and just swoosh your mouse. Like that's what I would do. And it would just drag the sample. Like it would drag that little clip and drag whatever, is left in the song when you move it. And when you do that, it ended up making some really cool kind of chops. And sometimes, most of the time, it sounds like shit. But when you really start to like randomly do it, and then you're like, okay, this sounds kind of cool. Then you adjust it so it fits, right with the drums and everything. So that's how I would do a lot of my chops. And another thing, and this is how the song Absorbed came to be off of Contrast. So I was working on the song originally. And it got to the point where like I had all my chops, I had everything going, and we've all gone through this. It just gets to a point where you just get frustrated because maybe you've just been listening to it for too long. Your ears just start to go delusional. But I just didn't like the chops that I had, and I was like, this sucks. Blah 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 blah. So then what I did was I literally loaded a new song and to overwrite that song that was chopped up. So now what it did was it just dragged a new file, a new song, and whatever I chopped the original song I was using, it did that for this new song. And literally, Absorb, what you hear in Absorb, 90% of that happened from that. It happened, and I was listening to it, and I was like, this actually sounds amazing. And then I started feeling a little guilty, because I'm like, oh, fuck, like, I feel like I didn't do any work. But then I thought to myself, I was like, you know what? I did, though, because I chopped that other one up, and now I'm just, replacing it with something, and it ended up working out. So then I just slightly moved everything around to get it with the right time, and that's how Absorb came to be. So,
dude,
long story short, just experiment and like take your samples and move them around, drag them, just do things that you don't think you're going to work out, because it could really work out. So that's how Pat Chennington chops his samples. I just think of it like a salad, and I got to cut all the fat off. Dude, there you go.
That's extremely funny that you say that. And I don't mean this. I don't mean this as an insult, by the way. Like I'm just saying. When I heard Absorb, I was like, my first thought was like, it sounds like the source file was something else and it got swapped out with another thing.
That's exactly what happened. It was so weird. And that also happened, another really quick one. That was also sort of the case for Exhibition off of Dewdropper. Like that ended up being really weird and clunky sounding, which I always try to get that sound. And sometimes it's because if you're trying to specifically make something, it's very hard in my opinion, at least for me. Right now, only making music digitally for like a year, it's really hard to make it like unique and clunky and like things all over the place, but it still has rhythm. And doing this, sometimes it ends up working out, and then from there you just mix and match the pieces to get it to sound right, and you could end up with something really cool. So just pretty experiment. Cool. Yeah,
that's kind of cool. Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, it's funny. It's like I before I like answer it, it's weird because like I think about like some of the stuff that I was doing like a while ago, and in a way like I kind of think of that as like I was just doing a bunch of like weird shit because I didn't actually like fully know what I was doing still. But then when you think about it, like now that I actually like I know what I'm doing like a lot more, it just kind of like it almost kind of stifles your creativity a little bit. It's like you don't go out of your way to try that like weird stuff that can create like really cool results. And that is also something I'm trying to work on right now because I've like sort of realized that. It's like once you know how like once you have a general idea of what you're already going for, it's like it gets harder to go out of those like confines. And I feel like doing stuff like that is important even in just like for any sort of music producer because it like keeps things interesting. You try weird things that you've never tried before, and then like you said, it could cause like a brand new idea to come up, or like you could already have something that sounds super interesting. If it's not something that you're gonna make a full song out of, if it still sounds cool enough, you can export it and then use it in a later song. So it's like, yeah. But what could you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, yeah,
Because I
sure.
don't
So,
remember it.
so the first part would be how do you go about finding samples, and the second part is how do you chop that
Okay.
sample up?
Okay, so regarding how I find samples, my answer for both of these questions are going to be similar. Um, first off, with me finding samples, there's no better way of saying it than just start finding something. Just look for something. It doesn't matter if like what you're looking for, you find it today, tomorrow, in a month, or 5 seconds later. It's just like you have to start somewhere. And the internet is insane because there's so many things that you can find. It's almost like information overload. So you just have to like look up 80s disco or whatever like sort of ideas you're trying to find a YouTube channel that uploads that sort of stuff, and just go down the rabbit hole. Like there's really like really nothing else to it. And I think that's also like very similar, not only for crate digging online but also crate digging in real life. Like something similar to what you said about Jay Dilla, like finding his samples by just going out crate digging, looking at something and just being like, hey, this looks cool, I'm going to try sampling it, but not really knowing like what you're going to get out of it. And I've definitely done that before with like, I guess less success because it's like, I'm still a college student, and I don't really have like a ton of money to go around. So when I go, like I'll pick like two or three records at a record store if like I'm trying to sample something like out of the dollar bin. But in terms of like finding samples, like it's just crate digging, trying to look for stuff, starting to get like an idea of what you're trying to look for your music, and then just try again with everything that you do in life, just in general. You're only going to get success by doing it over and over and over again, and at
Mm-hmm.
one point you will strike gold no
Yep.
matter which way you're doing it. And
Great
there,
way
there
to put it.
truly is no right way of doing it. You just got to do it. And having like a few like basic leads is good, but like regardless if you're like doing this in a record store or just going down the rabbit hole like in the view like the YouTube like related section, whatever works. Like I found like 810 samples, like this French disco track that I found like going down a YouTube rabbit hole, like I think like 4 5 years ago. Found the track. Back then that track didn't even have 100 plays, not even 100 plays, registered on a record label that only ever put out two singles ever and then just went out of business. And like it's just crazy because I literally had that song like in a project file for like a year and a half, made the first loop for it, and I just sucked so bad at music at the time that I couldn't finish the song. So I just came back to it like 2 years later. um but I think that's my answer. Long story short, it doesn't matter where you start. There's a lot of really great YouTube channels out there like Boogie 80, Slater. I'm not going to give out my personal ones because they're like really small, obscure channels, and not necessarily that I don't want to give stuff out. I'm just worried that because they upload so much content that like getting a lot of traffic to them could like cause them to get shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, like it's just like you just gotta find like what you're looking for and just start finding. And what was the other part? Like shopping samples,
Yep.
like
How do you chop them
sample
up?
manipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, there's not really much of like a direct answer to this. It's really just dependent on what I want to do. Sometimes I'll do what you do, which is like I'll just drop the sample in a track, and then um, I'll like chop up the parts that like I'm interested in, and then kind of like trim out the fat from like the original track. I'll try to make like something out of it, like a melody or something like that. There have been instances where like I will drop the track in like an Ableton sampler and then use my keyboard to like splice each part of like a portion of a song into like quarter, eighth notes, 16 notes, and I try to jam out on like my keyboard to make something cool out of that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's like a nicer, more hands-on approach to things. Um, and I sometimes, honestly, sometimes I don't even start with samples. Sometimes I just start with a chord progression, maybe bass line. I don't even put drums on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it will just come to be that somewhere in like one of my sample folders or my download folders, I remember, hey, I have this really cool sample with this one part that would work really well. Like, and then you find out that it's in key, and then you just keep it there for like added texture. Sometimes sampling doesn't necessarily have to be about the sample being just like a general centerpiece of the track. Sometimes it can be like more of a background element, like as if you were to use it as an instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's wait. Somebody actually said, I accidentally found one
I
of
was just
Fibre's
gonna say,
oldest albums.
really quick before you say that, I was just gonna say that also happened to me. You did a video on Arabesque, right, by Sebastian? Was that
Wait,
you?
could you repeat that? Because you cut it out for me.
Did you do a video on breaking down how Sebastian made Arabesque?
I didn't make a video on Airbest, but I made a video on breaking down Kindercut.
Maybe that, I don't remember, because I swore I saw Barb Walters comment on a video saying, "How do you do this so fast?" And I was like, "Wait, is this you?" And I never asked you if
Was
that
it
was you.
on YouTube or SoundCloud?
YouTube. It was on YouTube. It was like you were in Ableton and you were breaking down, like you were chopping up the song and showing how it was done.
Was it there? It could have been. Let me link you this video. I think it might have been this one. Was it this one? This is like a really old video that nobody knows about.
Let me see. Hold on. This is probably it. Yeah, this is probably
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, oh man, this is like a really shitty recreation of this. I made this in like 2014. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, I have another video where like I broke down Face to Face by Daft Punk
Mm-hmm.
on one of them. It's got like 70,000 views at this point.
Oh damn.
I did a breakdown of High Fidelity, and I just did a Music Sounds Better With You remake. It's funny. I did a lot of the stuff that I've done like in terms of learning how to sample was for me just trying to recreate like pretty much every single Daft Punk song in existence. I just tried recreating one more time in Aerodynamic and
Mm-hmm.
Face to Face. And I learned a lot about sampling from that. That's literally how I learned how to sample. So I mean, I would highly, highly recommend that people try like recreating their favorite like sample-based tracks out, even if they're tracks from like this scene, like from the future funk and vaporwave scene, because you'll learn like a hell of a lot about like how how to actually sample from doing that.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally all I did, I think, for like 3 years straight, because I had no friends in like online in terms of production. Just learned off of like production tutorials on YouTube, and I kind of sucked for a while. But then once I got better and better, I started meeting more people, and I got better with time. But yeah, it's just it could go either way, in terms of sampling. I could chop it up, could load it in my keyboard. Sometimes I do like a little stutter chop thing where you add like a little bit of a gap between like the next chop.
Mm.
That gives it like a nice sort of accent.
Yeah.
And I One other thing before I like stop talking about this specifically is that sometimes I will like reverse samples and like work with like Ableton's fades to crossfade between samples. That's something that Eevee.exi actually taught me, which I do a lot of now.
Wait,
So
say that
yeah.
again really quick. What
So
did
like
you?
I'll use like the Ableton like faders. Like you can basically set like volume automation like on individual audio samples in Ableton.
Okay.
So if you can set a fader from like the left or the right of the clip. So you could just like get it to like rise up in volume without actually changing the volume of the track. Or like the channel. I forgot that, that's generally what you call it. Like in Ableton they just call it tracks. But and then but you can like, let's say you have like two samples like right next to one another, like they're touching, like
Mm-hmm.
there's no gap between the two of them. You can actually set that fade between the two of them to crossfade between the next, like the first sample and the next, right?
Oh,
So
okay,
instead of
okay.
instead of just switching over to that sample, it will use like a little bit after, and like a little bit after the first sample and a little bit before the second sample, and it will like crossfade between those samples, and it gives like a really interesting effect.
Got it. So
So
when you said up until you said cross it, I was thinking like, are you just is this just like another fancy word for like side chaining. That's what I thought you were kind of going with, but then
No,
that
no.
is cool because I'm thinking of it from like Adobe Premiere Pro perspective now, and I could totally see how that's a cool little tool to like spice up a sample chop. Which that is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, you literally just like it's technically crossfading, but it's really just like a transition from like the next sample to like it's like while the volume of the first sample is going down, the volume of the second sample is going up at like an equal level. So it's like the amplitude remains the same, but it's like it's actually fading between the two.
So cool. And
So
I know from me personally, there'll be a lot of times where I'm chopping up a sample, and it can get like pretty harsh sounding because there are those just like straight up cuts in between each chop. So that
yeah,
is that is a cool thing to kind of know now.
you can use like a fade to like roll off like just like a little bit like before the sample cuts out, and that will like give it like sort of like a smoothened out like without just like
Mm,
kind of like assaulting the eardrums,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
It'll kind of smooth it out, yeah.
awesome. Also, one more time, real quick, Go Duck. Yeah, the groceries tape. What I have to. I'm gonna announce that ASAP. I
Oh
know
yeah,
that
you
was
forgot about that
yeah,
again.
that was on April 10th. I have to go. I have to backtrack the donations to see during that time period who donated for that. There wasn't a lot, so whoever donated has a really good chance of winning that cassette.
You said
And
there
then
was like three people.
yeah, there's like either three, four tops. I have to go look. But I'm also gonna announce the new cassette giveaway soon. So we will do that soon. But yeah, I'm gonna get to that. I'll put that groceries thing either tonight on Twitter or tomorrow morning. I gotta look that up. But
Do you mind if I read like a quick question like from the
yeah, yeah, go
chat?
ahead. We
Yeah,
could yeah
there's something.
we can go back and forth. So
Yeah, there's like one that like I actually would want to answer because it's I think it's an important question.
yep.
I don't know if you okay, so Zintax, I think that's how you pronounce it, says I don't know if you guys saw this before, but I had a question about how I can make more connections and get more listeners in my music. I
Mm-hmm.
think my music is pretty good already, but I don't have many listeners right now. Okay, so I don't know if you specifically in the vaporwave scene or the future funk scene, but in terms of like just electronic scenes in general, there's so many people that are trying to meet other people. And I guess you just got to shoot your shot, you know? You just got to like start contacting some of these people. And I feel like the most important thing for me was like a willingness to travel because a lot of the friends that I made like online, while they like live on the East Coast, I live like anywhere between like 4 to 8 hours away from them. Not like you have to travel to them every weekend, but it's always good to meet up with those people, even if you're not playing a show. Just being together, you know, having a common sort of interest
Mm-hmm.
really just boosts morale when you're talking about like making music. It's like it gets kind of lonely if you're just by yourself and you don't really know like that much, you know, like you don't know somebody else that's like also doing the same sort of thing. Um, and yeah, joining like if you can't like actually meet other people, like joining like Discord servers like Tanglefoot just suggested is like a really good sort of way to like start making like connections with people, you know, and the more people that you talk to, like inadvertently, the higher up, like in the hierarchy you sort of go. Like I started off just talking to like some like friends that I met through like literally Rob Clems was my first online friend,
Mm-hmm.
and he like I met him through a YouTube comment. So it's like there's really like no answer to like where you can like find people that like have similar interests to you. And like he also said, "I see what you mean, Fibre. I'm really young though, so I can't go anywhere." And like I had the same issue. Like I literally couldn't go anywhere, and like without like my parents like being like, "Where are you?" until I was like 19. So like you know, like you just you know, it's always important to kind of like just take your time with that. Your time will come when it comes to that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Fiber was saying too, so I think a lot of people like there's a lot of shy people out there, and I know myself like I'm fucking loud and obnoxious. So, like what I would
You
say,
are.
what
I'm
I
just
would say is
kidding.
I could only give you advice on just how I went about things. And I think the best way to go about building connections, because just to say like connections, obviously connections are great, but you have to know, I guess, how to build them. And I think one thing that's
Yeah.
really important, and I'll explain what I mean by this, is knowing your strengths and knowing your weaknesses. So when sometimes I look at me and like honestly looking at the whole scene and like I've made so many friends, but me and Fibre, we are very close. Like we've hung out like a bunch of times. We've gone to shows. We fucking saw Sebastian. Like we're close, and it all
What a time.
yeah. Oh my god, what a night that was. But um, what's really interesting about I guess the friendship me and Fibre have is we know each other's strengths and we know each other's weaknesses, and we can like I can learn so much from Alex, and I know that I could also teach Alex things as well. So when you go into the scene, it's one thing to I guess reach out and try and make connections, but also take pride in who you are, what you know, and what you can bring to the table as well. Because if you could just find someone else who, okay, maybe they're good at this one thing in making music, but you're good at this one thing in marketing, I don't know. You guys can work together, teach each other, so that when you rise up and you get to a point where now you've both learned each other's craft, now you can move on to someone else who knows something different, and they can move on to someone who knows something different, and you just keep growing together and growing together. So I think always be prepared to bring something to the table, because if you can do that, it's not a selfish thing at all. It's a you're just taking advantage and living life with other humans. Just you can learn from other people and other people can learn from you. So I would just I can only tell you what I know, and that's kind of how it went for me, obviously. And for me, it translates more to how did the channel start and how did I grow as the channel. And it literally was because I know I'm an energetic person. I know I like to work hard, and I know that I love certain albums, certain artists, and whatnot. So I reached out to those people and just grew from there. I don't. It's really just what can you bring to the table before what someone can bring to the table for you. And I think if you could do that and you could be humble and understand your weaknesses, like I know for Fibre, I look up to him so much as a musician. So that's kind of where starting to work with him, and that's how we kind of just became friends with that in a way. And then you just go from there. So yeah. Just that.
I mean, that's a great way of putting it. Like, truly.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about it in that way, you know.
Yeah, because you know what it is. I think people, and then I'll move on. But just it's super hard to you get very intimidated by the concept of connections, because everyone just says that. They say connections are so important, but no one ever goes.
What does that inherently mean?
What does that mean? Yeah, it's like what does that even mean? So then you just kind of get scared and you're like, I don't want to talk to this person. Look how good of a musician this guy is. But like I know me, like when I had no idea, like Barb Walters in the chat, for example, perfect example. I reached out to him. I've never made music before, and working on the track with him, that was one of the first songs that I worked on for Contrast, and it was literally a matter of I understand what this can, what he can bring to the table for me, and I don't know. It's a matter of just knowing what you can bring to the table, what someone else can bring to the table, and you grow. You kind of grow from there. It's hard to explain, but yeah.
I feel like it's important to make the different to understand the difference between like making connections and like the mutually beneficial relationship that like for example we have as friends. Mm-hmm. And like taking advantage of somebody.
Yeah. It's like when I said the word taking advantage, that kind of came off the wrong way. But I know you know what I meant.
Oh. Yeah, no. I wasn't like saying necessarily like for what you were saying. Mm-hmm. I meant like in the sense of like when people talk about making connections, it's not just necessarily inherited. Like it's not just necessarily driven in terms of, I guess, like this end goal. You know, like we mutually benefit from each other, and that's that. Mm-hmm. It's like it's deeper than that. Yeah, I'm not saying that what you said is wrong, because I know you feel that way. Mm-hmm. It's just that, I guess like it's just like it's good to know like in like what you said. It's good to know what you have when you come to the table, and if somebody else can help you, kind of like improve on whatever you're trying to improve on, well then that's just kind of like the key definition of like a good friendship, especially when you like match energies.
Exactly.
You're into like the same sort of like things as that person, like you at least share like one sort of common interest that you feel really passionate about. Mm-hmm. And that allows you to connect with those people.
Yeah. And you also have to remember too, especially our scene, and I say this a lot too, it always seems that it's a lot bigger than it is, because whoever's part of the Vaporwave Future Funk scene, we spend a lot of time in that scene. Like we spend a lot of time online, and things seem larger than they really are. But I can promise you, even the biggest artists in this scene even if you just message them just to say that you look up to them and you would just want any sort of tips, I'm sure almost anyone will reach back out to you and just be
Yeah.
so happy to even hear that. So
It's
don't even think you're gonna be annoying or a nuisance. It's not that at all. At all.
Yeah, just take it from my perspective. Like when I hear like Pad say like I look up to like I look up to you so much. It's I've been doing this for so long that it's kind of like hard for me to understand that in a sense, if you get what I mean. It's like yeah, I know how to make music, but like what's super special about it? Sometimes I kind of feel that way. And
Hmm.
I feel like it's important to like understand that, producers are kind of like people too, the people that you look up
Yep.
to,
Yep.
they're like, they're people, they have complex emotions and stuff like that. And while you might hold them up to like the highest pedestal possible, well, they might not see that necessarily.
Hmm.
Like it's important to have confidence, I'm not saying that like, oh, like this person is like depressed or something like that, but they might like kind of like take what they do to like a level of modesty. So it's like, like putting them all the way up there, and like it's kind of harder to see eye to eye with them as if you were meeting just like any random person.
Hmm.
It's difficult to do that, but like I think that's kind of important when it comes to like, for example, with me making connections in the scene. Like I remember like when man, I can't even think of like an example, but just when I talk to people that I've listened like Saint Pepsi, right? Like it took every single portion of me to not freak out and be like, oh my God, it's Skylar Spence, it's Saint Pepsi, I'm losing my mind, I love you, right? But then when I actually just kind of try to like calm down and like talk to him as if he was just like any other guy that like I respect. You know, I came to realize that he's a really cool just like dude that like I share common interests with. And that sort of connection, it kind of makes things feel like a bit more like personable in a sense. It makes it easier to make friends. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. Bottom line is this: I like when I go to a show, it always feel if it's not vaporwave, it does feel like you're going to a show and everyone's glued to the person on stage and whatnot. But whenever I'm at a vaporwave show, it really feels like the artist, everyone's on the same level. Everyone's just friends, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's
Oh man,
simple.
the community is so inviting for the most
Yeah,
part.
it definitely is. And whatever like anyone sees online, if there is whatever toxicity anyone encounters or something, like that's not real. I can 100%
Yeah.
promise you none of it is real. So,
I try to ignore that,
oh yeah, I don't
honestly.
even. I tell everybody
Yeah.
it's literally letters on a screen. So
Yeah, dude, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. There's literally some. I noticed there was like some dude who like I don't care because it's like rate your music. Like who fucking cares about rate your
oh,
music?
tell me
Oh,
about
it does. Oh yeah, you don't even. Yeah, you already know about rate your
Oh
music.
my
There's
god.
some. I just noticed there was like this one guy that like in like one day went through my entire discography and rated everything 1 star, 2 stars, 1 star, 2 stars. It turned out to be a guy that was like in my server who I thought was actually a pretty cool dude. And like I mean whatever, your opinion's your opinion, but
Yeah, of
it was
course.
just like funny. It was just like just numbers and letters on a screen, baby.
Yeah, that's
So
it. That's literally it. But yeah, I would just say, like we were just saying, don't get intimidated on the concept of making connections because connections are really important. And if you could just go into it and just realize that someone else that you looked up to who's a musician, they're just a human just like you, and I could promise
yeah.
you they're going to appreciate anything you say, whether
And
it's a question or just saying you like their music. Just go for it. So
it literally it literally like I this is the way that like I slowly got over like my sort of like anxiety of like talking to other people. At one point, like I started to realize that even if I screwed up saying something to somebody else, most likely people like just people in general like want to make friends. Like inherently we're social and we want to like kind of like be cool with other people, make friends, make those sorts of connections.
mhm.
So if you feel like you've screwed up talking to somebody, you can most of the time you can just be honest and ask them. But half of the time, like not even half of the time, I'm gonna say 9 out of 10 times in my own personal experience, that person will just like either be like, huh, okay, and then like forget about it, or like never even notice that it happened,
Mm-hmm.
like ever. So it's like, I don't know. Like I guess that's just food for thought, you know? It's like it helped me because like it made me like more confident personally in like what I was saying to other people and how I was talking to other people. And once I just realized that like actually people like don't really like care that much if I screw up, then just made that part of like making friends and socializing just a little bit more easy,
Yeah.
especially in this community.
I'm like waiting for Ryan. I'm waiting for Skylar Spence to text me and be like, "Yo, why are 45 people DMing me?" Nah, but yeah, just
It's
go.
like Pat Chennington and Fibre told us
Yeah,
to
they
go
told
and
me that
DM
you
fucking.
can I can message you. Nah, but just yeah, just I don't know, do your thing and just realize that you have a lot to bring to the table too. That's all, and you can just get stuff done. But
Yeah.
back to I guess literal audio stuff. I'm trying to see what else. Um, okay, so here's a well. Now, actually, that kind of we just answered that in a way.
Go Duck
Okay,
donated
how
another
about
50
this?
bucks.
Wait, what?
Go
Oh
Go
my
Duck donated
God,
another 50
I
bucks.
literally I don't know what to say. Thank
Creators are
you.
people too. I've always wanted to bring this topic up on the stream.
Thank you, Gogo. Thank everybody. I just show them some love. That's amazing. Gogo Duck, thank you for all the help. And like I said before, Gogo's donated before in the past, so it really helps a lot, especially during this whole Corona time where I'm just home and whatnot. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And it's all going towards the channel. I promise you that. I'm gonna get a proper PC. I was telling Fibre before this stream.
Dude,
I'm gonna build an actual PC so I could properly stream and not have my MacBook sound like it's gonna explode. So
yeah, I'm like trying to figure out how I'm gonna raise money for my computer actually, because I'm not working right now with this pandemic thing.
yeah, no, same. I'm not. I got furloughed, so I am
Oh
just.
shit, I'm sorry to hear
No,
that.
it's
Damn.
all good. It's all good. It's funny for those who know the whole story. I don't know if who was here back in the day when I used to stream from South Carolina. There was these streams where I would be like, I'm in
Yeah.
a hotel room in South Carolina. So that job, that ended in December, and I literally got a new job in early March. I took like 2 months off just to relax, work on pad shit, whatever. I started the new job in March, and then 2 weeks later, all the COVID stuff happens, and they furloughed all the new employees. So I was like, God damn. So now I'm just doing pad stuff. Well, once this, I'll find another job. But
You'll
anyway,
figure it out.
yeah. Bottom line, thank you, GoGo. It really goes a long way. But just so here's another good question, and this kind of just meshes into music in general, which
Yeah.
this is a good. I want to hear what you have to say about this. So,
Okay.
Tailspin 101 from the community post says, "What is the best vaporwave album or song you have ever heard?" So you go first. I really want to know what your answer is on this.
Probably something by Tendencies.
Okay.
Oh man. Man, Tendencies was like a really important part of like me figuring out my style, like when I was first starting out. His track Go on the
I knew you were
first
gonna say that.
anniversary.
Yep.
Yeah. It was like my first exposure to like, wow, you can actually make future funk that sort of sounds like Ed Banger. That uses like processed like drum machine drums. Like this is exactly what I've been trying to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was crazy because like I got to talk to him, but he was like super secretive about it at first, which obviously like that kind of like brought that was kind of like sort of like the mystique to his music. It like I'm like the kind of person like I talk about like a lot of the stuff that I do and like I like being open, but it's just like there's just kind of like this um there's this like sort of enamor when it comes to like hearing like really amazing sort of like music, especially music that like, like kind of like fits the sort of vision that you're also trying to do, and then not really getting answers on how to do it. It's like it's awesome, but it's also really frustrating.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like I think maybe I don't know, like because there's been so much like good music, like especially in the future funk scene. I would say like maybe okay, I will say like my top three albums of like all time. Um, Waterbed by Tendencies, the Future Society Volume 2 compilation, especially the first part of it. Oh my God, it's so good. And uh I think probably I would say Ev.exi's Forget. Yeah,
Mm.
that's a great album.
Yeah, that's it's cool to have you on here for that question because obviously we're gonna get the future funk heavy side of it, which is really cool.
Yeah.
For me, mine changes all the time, but honestly, like I was thinking about this yesterday. You know what group I like? I really love Runners Club '95 because what they do is they do all their own stuff and then they chop it up and make it vaporwave and they're I forget they have Panama Papers and then they have No Sugar Added. I think is their last one.
Oh
But
yeah.
that shit is so good. Like when because it's I just think it's cool to make your own, and then you could chop it and texture it in a way where it has a real good vaporwave vibe. So that's
Yeah.
really good. And then also I got it. We got to answer. We got to answer the Wizard of Loneliness question. What are your go-to physical moves on DJing? I know I saw Fibre with the crazy knob twist and extreme tempo tapping with those lanky arms. Fibre, I
Man,
got it. What do you got to say about that?
I feel like I've just been roasted. But to answer your question, I actually just responded to this like partially in the chat. I'm not like tempo. I guess I am tempo tapping, but I'm like actually mashing the sync button so that I can get like a general idea of when I like want to like trigger the song, like that I transition into. I
Mine's pretty
feel like I
sick.
don't.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that that's like a thing that I picked up from Eridus, who taught me how to DJ actually. Like I picked that up from him. I don't know where he picked it up from, but he does like the exact same thing. And then once he started to teach me, that just stuck with me because
Yeah.
it's like for me, it's like a really helpful way of like I guess identifying how I want to mix another song in with like a song that's already playing.
Yeah.
Um, and the knob twists, yeah, just like those really quick, like like sort of like high passes, and then switch to the next song is pretty much completely necessary for mixing future funk music because there's
Yep.
no intro, there's no
Yep.
outro. It's
Yep.
just
Yep. Yep.
chorus
Yep.
all the
That was one of
way.
the first. That was one of the first things I asked Fiverr actually, because so I used to back in high school. I used to DJ. I put that in quotes because I literally had like my laptop and virtual DJ, and like everything was
Oh
pre-mixed, and
man.
like I would just click a button on my laptop, and I thought I was like the shit. So I had quote unquote once again history in DJing, but I never produced. I never did anything, whatever. But it doesn't count. So I also played the drums when I was growing up. And when I
That
got
helps.
into yes, and I'm gonna say how that literally helped me with DJing, but for me, what ended up and this is the reason why I made music even in the first place was I wanted to get into DJing. I went to a Young Bay show and it was just a lot of fun, and I was like, you know what, I want to do this. And what I wanted to do was I want because I didn't make anything yet at the time, but I used to DJ, and I told to myself, all right, if I just get a controller and learn it, I'm sure I could learn it the right way, and I'll just play hits in the scene and kind of represent the scene. So I ended up going into looking into getting into the show, and then the place was like you have to have all your own material, which it was confusing in a way too because it was like a lot of stuff is sample based anyway. But then I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe it's just the smart thing to do. Let me learn how to make my own music, so at least I have my own tracks to play live, just in case someone were to be like, you're just playing other people's music too, and whatever. But for me, what ended up happening was I like to just think of my controller as a drum set. So I use a Pioneer XDJ RX2, and it has 8 hotkeys, whatever you call them, on one channel and then on the other channel. So like when Fiber says he's like syncing up, and then for me, what I'm doing is I'm constantly tapping the button like it's a hi hat almost, and I'm playing in my headphone. I'll be playing the song that's gonna come in, but I'm just constantly
I'm doing
clicking
the same.
I'm constantly clicking the hot cue, and I try to think of it as a drum set. And then also when it comes to chops, like I like to do a lot of stutter chops live, and this Pioneer equipment, like there's a really cool setting for it, but I literally just try to think of them as just like toms on a drums, and I'm just doing that. So when you see me like going crazy, I actually am kind of doing something. But here's the trick. Here's the Pat Chennington trick. When I really don't, when I'm not doing anything. If I'm yelling and I'm just like screaming at the crowd
I
or
was
something,
I was about to make a joke about that. It's like, is the Pad Chennington trick just you cutting like the audio and screaming into the microphone?
yeah, that's literally it. It's just me screaming into the microphone or like just going ape shit is when I'm
Dude,
just like,
it works.
dude,
It
it's fun.
works.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. I don't even know what to say. It's a lot of fun. But that's my trick. When you see me just cut the music and just start yelling, it's because I really don't know what else to do in that moment, and I don't want to overdo the chops. So that's my
Yeah.
thing.
It's good that you have that. It's like it's just like I guess it's like your thing. It's like your character thing when you're like DJing. For
Yeah.
me, it's just like it's just those really quick like transitions and stuff.
Well, I'll tell you this much. Like, I had friends that night because when we did the aesthetic nights show, all of my friends who came, like, they don't listen to vaporwave or future funk, so they were kind of just there just to like represent me, and that I was playing, and it was in New York, and everyone's from New York. But like I had people come up to me afterwards with like, yo, like Fibre and Power PCME too. Like it just sounded so good. Like they just sounded like professional, really, really, really well. And I know for me, half of my whole thing with the live set is like I just love to get people pumped up and like partying and just feeling good. So
Bro, your set was like insane, like because you know how to hype people up like a
that's
lot.
yeah,
Like I got people dancing, but
yeah.
you were the one that got people fucking hollering and disco-holic, like acting like a complete like
Yeah, I
maniac on
love
stage.
him. Oh my
Oh
god.
my God, Mike from Basement, Mike's his name, right? From
Yeah,
Basement
yep,
Law.
yep.
Literally, Mike like went up to Discoholic at the end of that, and he was just like, "I'm just gonna ask you this question professionally. Are you high?" That's it.
Yeah, he had so Discoholic had this cowbell when I had the show in Aesthetic Nights, and it was so much fun. I
We
can't
whipped
wait.
out that shit during MagFest as well. It's like a crowd favorite. We just literally during MagFest we just fucking like mic'd, like we just mic'd the cowbell up, and just like it was just like ringing while like people were playing their sets, and like people were just like screaming like on the floor. It was insane.
Yeah, it's good times, good times. But that's the Pad Chennington move. It's just when I just try to hype the crowd up, it's because I don't. I have ran out of ideas, but it works. It works. Um, let's see what else we got here. Hold on, I just saw something from Alan. What did he say? Is there a soundboard recording from that night? I don't think there's an actual like soundboard
Mm,
recording. No.
No, but I am considering like re-recording my stuff for that and like putting it up on like a future Patreon thing.
That's cool. That's a great idea,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah.
Really, really
And
cool.
I actually do know that Shadab or whatever his
Yeah,
name is.
Vaporatorian has the whole show on his like phone,
Yeah,
and it's pretty good
Va
quality. It's pretty
yeah,
good.
Vaporatorium put up all of our sets pretty much. I know mine is all the way up there. But it's like it's just like I think like whatever camera he was using to record it, like the gain like goes up and down
Yeah,
like a lot during transitions because it was just so like bassy in that room. So when it like we were doing like a transition, there's like no bass and something like that, the audio gets like insanely loud. It just like blares out like your eardrums.
yeah,
But that's just an unfortunate byproduct of something like that.
yeah. Adding on to live questions, this is a great question from Syntax as well. So they go, is there any live hardware that you recommend? I'm trying to go for live remixes, kind of like a live 2007, if that makes sense. So Fiber can tell you that, and I didn't know this going into all the live shows. Most of the time, the venues that you'll play at, it's like venue standard that they'll just have just equipment. Like they'll have like CDJ
Yeah,
2000s. And I didn't know anything like that. So when I was getting into this thing, I was like, damn, I have to get equipment. Like I need to get something. So I actually went out and bought an XDJ RX2, which looking back at it, I'm really happy I am because I
good
fucking
decision.
love that thing. I love that thing so much. But so to answer the question, is there any live hardware that you recommend? I don't know. I feel
Yeah.
like you're more inclined to answer this question because for me, I just bring my XDJ RX2 wherever I can. That's what I
Yep.
do. So
So he said he's interested, or they said because I don't know if he or she. Um, they said that they were interested in a live 2007 sort of stuff. Okay, well, Daft Punk actually like during a live like used Ableton for that show. Most of it was sequenced like through session view, and they had like a lot of like I think they had like NPCs that were hooked up to MIDI to like trigger samples, and all of it was pretty much done in session view. Like they had external instruments like routed to several like Moog Voyagers as well that would trigger like a lot of the arpeggios and stuff that like were happening like throughout the show. So in terms of like session view, on Ableton, it is really like the go-to for any sort of live performance that isn't just necessarily DJing between like two tracks and just doing like sort of like basic mashups. Like that is like the way to like kind of like rehearse that sort of stuff. And a lot of people like sometimes will ask me about like how did Daft Punk like achieve that sort of like really stuttery, like slowed down vocal effect? And that's like during like a live 2007. That's literally just the textures like warping algorithm that you can just select in a drop down menu on Ableton. You can just mess with the formants and whatnot, and it will give you that sound like one to one. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah, so I mean, when like something specific like that, yeah, that's your answer. But if it's just a matter of like what to expect, like I was saying, they're gonna have stuff for the most part,
Oh
and
yeah,
you could just bring a USB drive and just pop your shit in.
they just I just realized they asked about live hardware. So probably like honestly like I don't know. I think like for like actual hardware in terms of like doing like mashups like that, there's like a lot of like Akai like MPC like MIDI controllers that you can use. There's like the launch pad. If you want something that's like sort of like a mini launch pad, but like with also a keyboard and faders, I have like the Novation launch key. There's just like a lot of like MIDI controllers that can like be mapped to like pads on like samples in Ableton and even like keyboards as well. So I guess that's my answer for the hardware part.
Mm.
You can find a lot of it used as well, like
Yeah.
online for like literally 40, $50.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
Ableton Push as well, Mayor just said. That's a good one. And the Launchpad Mini is also good. But the Push is really expensive. I would love one, but it's like $1,000.
I do want to get some sort of like, just like pad thing like that too to add on to the side. I definitely want to do something like that. I just want to evolve what I can do with my equipment live. And then
Yeah.
also, Brandon says, this is another good question. I'll tell you, I'll tell you the song I always drop. I feel like everyone knows it, but what would be the most wild track you could play during a DJ set? So, when you're playing like to the Future Funk crowd, like if you just drop "Fun Tonight," it's just literally a
Oh yeah.
fucking bomb. It's a
Yeah, have
bomb.
you seen that video from MagFest?
Yeah. I remember you showed
Literally.
me. I think you showed me that night of Aesthetic Nights. You showed me when you dropped it.
Yeah.
So that song, and then what I like to do, um, obviously I'm playing to like a future funk vaporwave crowd. I think when you are mixing your set, like if you have to make your set diverse because it's like food. Like if you have like spicy, sweet, salty, all that stuff, you just get a great. Your taste buds are always moving. So if you do like future funk and then you move it into like a hard hitting, like I don't know, like boys noise or something, like that shit bumps when it drops. So
You
if you just do shit like
you
that, oh yeah, you got it. You're gonna have the crowd going nuts.
I learned this from Six Stroke, who is like a DJ and producer like on a DJ collective that I work with called Kawaii Bass.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned from him that it's not just about good song selection. You have to really think ahead of time to the crowd that you're playing,
Yep.
right? Like if you're going to play to a predominantly future funk crowd, you want to not only include the future funk and like the house tracks and just stuff that you like in general, like stuff that's like hard hitting, like more obscure, but you also kind of have to tease them a little bit with like the fan favorites, you know? And that's what I like once I started making that change in like my own personal sets, like I started playing like the occasional like city pop song or like Young Bay or something like that. People got like way more engaged with like my sets. People like stayed because that's the thing. Like you can have like a lot of people come in, but you'll
Mm.
have a lot of people going out if you don't also kind of like throw in something that's like a little bit like more familiar. And the one thing that I did with Aesthetic Nights is I not only tried to cater for the people that were future funk fans, but I also tried to cater for like the people that you were bringing out from like you know your sort of like group. So I
Yeah,
played
yeah.
like house remixes of songs that
Did you played Call on
people
Me, right?
yeah I
Yeah,
played
I
Call
had
on
my
Me.
friend, my buddy Matt was like, he fucking Eric Pride's like he loves that shit, and he was like, I couldn't believe
Yeah.
I heard that song. So yeah, it
Dude, you
works
know what's
out.
really funny? He got I think Eric was his name. He was the guy that like stopped me. Like was he also like a DJ?
No, so you're probably thinking of was his name Joe?
Joe, yes.
Yeah. So okay, so
Joe stopped me and talked to me for like literally like an hour because he was just like so like shocked by my set. It was
yeah. No, it worked out because you played a lot of stuff that wasn't just future funk, and I think that's the thing too. And that's another great just live tip. It's just like just make your set diverse. It goes so far. I played because I had a lot of my friends come from home. I played literally a French Montana Rick Ross song. Like like that. I just have fun. Just make it real diverse, and it just goes so far. It goes so far. But wait, hold on, Alex, you still there? I think we might have lost Alex for a second. Hello, hello, hello. Unless my audio went out. Wait, let me. I don't think. Can you guys can hear me? I think we lost Fibre. Can you guys still hear me? Wait, can you hear me? Can you hear me? His laptop probably. Oh wait, Fibre, you are there, but I can't hear you on the call. Wait, hold on. I wonder what happened. Hold on. I'm gonna recall you, Fibre. 1 second. Can you hear me? Yes, no, maybe so. All right, hold on 1 second, everybody. We're not gonna lose them. Hold on. All right, so you guys can hear me. That's great. We can't hear Fibre. All right, so Fibre, they can't hear you either. Well, obviously, because you're not coming out of my computer. But I don't even see like the green lines going around our pictures in Discord. So, all right, I'm gonna restart your Discord. Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. Hold on. I wish I had like elevator music on tap. Like it just click for moments where just the audio just goes bizarre. Hold on. Now I don't know if it's opening. Hold on. Now he's calling me. Yo, I restarted Discord. It might be my Discord actually because it's not opening. Weird. Yeah. No, I'm looking right now. The Discord logo is just like loading up, so maybe Discord just went down. I have no idea. Is it try restarting it for you? Because if it went down, then yeah, it's weird. Everybody, say Fibre's on the phone. Say what's up to Fibre. Hold on. Wait, Fibre, talk into my microphone from my phone.
Hello? I'm like on a phone call right now, so it probably sounds like shit.
Yeah, it probably sounds awful. All right, this is what we're gonna do. Fibre, try and restart your thing. Let me know if it works. Mine's not working. It's literally not letting me log in. It's saying update failed.
Oh,
Retry.
interesting.
All right.
Oh, it's update.
People are saying it's a
Oh,
Discord
apparently
problem.
it's a Discord problem.
Very interesting. Okay, you know what?
So people are saying that Discord is down right now.
Yeah, Discord's basically down. God damn it! All right, this is what we're gonna do.
Damn.
This is what we're gonna do. So, if anything,
You want to do like a FaceTime audio call or something instead?
let me see if they can. Hold on. I've never even used FaceTime on here. I don't even know how to set it up.
Man, that's the moment that we do something like this. Discord is down.
I know. We've been waiting to do this stream for a while. You know what? Let's do this. So, and I was gonna say this too in the beginning of the stream. What we're gonna do is that we wanted this stream to be more conceptual and conversation based, but next stream we were gonna do a follow up stream to this where Alex was actually going to share his screen, and we were just gonna do live chops just on stream, something more literal and more just hands on. So maybe if anything, let's just call it here, and
Sure.
yeah, because we're already at like an hour and a half. Yeah, so this is what we're gonna do, everybody. So we're gonna do another one of these streams. We were planning this anyway, where we're actually just going to have the stream show what's on Fibre's computer, and we're just going to go through music with him, and it's going to be super just straight up, and it'll be a lot of fun and really hands-on. But Fibre, say goodbye to everybody from my phone.
Yeah, bye guys. I'm sorry that it has to end like this. It was really fun though, and hopefully I'll be back, like pretty soon.
Yeah, no. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's just like it was like an honor, like being able to talk to you finally on stream. I know we've been talking about this for like literally months now, and I'm looking forward to the next one. It just kind of sucks that it was cut short, but it happens.
Yeah, no, I'm happy we got this much time. We've almost gone for 2 hours already, but I hope you all enjoyed the stream. We're going to do this again probably pretty soon, and like I said, we're going to have like actual music going on, and it's going to be way more just literal. We're going to have a fun time, but everyone, thanks again for coming out to the stream, and we will talk soon. I love you all. Much love. Your boy, Pad Chennington, and Fibre.